we have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
Did you hear that? He said they have put together the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of politics. What, as you probably know right now, the bombshell information that has came out, which has implicated former President Barack Obama as being the maestro, the orchestrator, the architect of what we now know as Obamagate, which is where they put out fake information claiming that the Russians helped Donald Trump steal the 2016 election from Hillary Clinton. And if you remember, President Trump was a darling to everybody in the country, had the #1 TV show for 15 years with The Apprentice. He was an accomplished businessman that had golf courses and some of the most lavish hotels all around the world. The rappers were talking about they wanted to be like Donald Trump. The women, the models, they wanted to be with Donald Trump. Then all of a sudden, he made one mistake that turned the entire liberal media and the Democrat Party against him and made him their enemy. And at first, and this is why President Barack Obama had such a vengeance toward President Trump. And what he did, he questioned Barack Obama's birthright citizenship as a United States citizen. And when he did that, he said, I want to see the birth certificate. And what most people don't know is one of the very first executive orders that Barack Obama signed when he became president. It wasn't on taxes. It wasn't on border security. It was sealing up his official records where no one could see his birth certificate, high school transcripts, college transcripts, anything like that. Now, previous presidents had all made these things accessible. Barack Obama sealed his. And why? Could it be because of the fact that even in the autobiography that was written on Barack Obama, the author even published that Barack Obama was born in Kenya? Well, if he was born in Kenya, guess what that would make him? A citizen of Kenya. But they sealed it up. So when Donald Trump made that claim, everybody turned against him. Donald Trump was even on The View kissing Whoopi Goldberg and hanging out with the ladies, the chicken cackling hens of The View at one point in time. And then they hated him once he questioned their Messiah. Now, since that time, Obama had a vendetta. Even if you remember, Obama was even doing social media posts where Donald Trump was questioning him. And he said, well, at least I will go down as a president.
President Obama will go down as perhaps the worst president in the history of the United States! Exclamation point at real Donald Trump. Well, at real Donald Trump, at least I will go down as a president.
And then did a mic drop on President Trump. So he was trolling him left and right. Then the election time comes. It's Trump and Hillary. Obama and the Democrats put everything behind Hillary. They thought she was going to win. So they were so confident. The woman didn't even go campaign in places like Iowa. She didn't set foot in places like Pennsylvania. Why? Because she thought she had it sold up. Now, fast forwarded to election night. And one thing that these posters and these channels have always done historically is underpolled President Trump's performance. And it was no different in 2016. They had Hillary Clinton blowing him out. There was no way he was going to win. Matter of fact, he was a laughing stock. They wanted President Trump as her candidate until the debates came. And in the debates, President Trump was sticking and moving. He was bobbing and weaving like it was Rocky Balboa fighting against Clubber Lang in their second fight. And he was taking some blows, but boy, was he dishing them. And on that night, when the tally settled and President Trump became the 45th president of the United States, winning the Electoral College, but Hillary Clinton had won the popular vote. And at that moment, right after that, this is when the spin started. And President Obama, he was the president at the time. John Brennan was the director of the CIA. James Clapper, James Comey, who was the director of the FBI. They all got together and they said, hey, listen, because intelligence came in and it said, we don't find any connection between the Russians and the Trump campaign. Obama didn't like that. So what he did is, working with the Clinton Foundation, they gathered together that hush money, not even hush money, that what do they call those boxes? That petty cash. It just so happened to be their petty cash was a few $1 million, upwards of $12 million that was invested in this whole orchestrated hoax, which include paying for the Steele dossier, paying for different people to act as if they had this concrete evidence. As a matter of fact, you remember Adam Shifty Schiff stepping up saying that he saw concrete evidence proving that President Trump worked with the Russians. Matter of fact, they used that as the stepping stone for their impeachments. Now, let's jump back to present day. During that time, Obama and the guys, they classified it. And they never expected, when President Trump was in office, they went to work. They made the American people turn against him because they felt like he was an illegitimate president, that Hillary Clinton had actually won. So the Democrat apparatus, which includes the entire mainstream media, they attacked. As a matter of fact, on President Trump's very first day in office, January the 21st of 2017, the headline in the Washington Post read, President Trump was going to be impeached. First day, in the early morning, it already had impeachment on the mind. Well, for what? He hadn't committed anything, hadn't even been in office. So as he was working his way through, they were beating him down, beating him down, beating him down. Then 2020 election comes up. Ironically, the pandemic hits. And we all know how that went. So we go through the Biden years and we know, wreck the place. President Trump up again, which they never foresaw. They thought he was going to be in prison, or they just knew the American people would turn against him. And this man had no shot at regaining the White House. But they underestimated the intelligence of the American people. We knew that they were lying. We saw through it. And guess what? We put him back in. And when that happened, the rats were panicking. And one thing everybody was saying is, when are the arrests coming? When are the arrests coming? When are the arrests coming? But they had to be patient, because one thing we know that Biden did, he got something like 230 federal judges appointed. There's only 670 federal judges in the country. So do the math. Joe Biden in his term brought in a little bit more than a third of the federal judges. And that's what these liberals were doing. They run to a favorable judge, district judge, who would do a blanket national order that was shutting things down. If you're enjoying this video, do me a solid, hit that like button, because I will never ask you for a cash app or a super chat, but you hitting that thumbs up, it really helps. It spreads the information out. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe. And if you're already subscribed or subscribing now, make sure that you hit the notification bell and select all, because YouTube hasn't been sending out notifications unless you select all. So select all. That way you'll be notified when I upload new videos. And so you got all of these federal judges, these liberal federal judges, these political hacks that are in judges' robes, that nobody wanted to touch anything when it comes to their Obama. But Trump gets back in. So now they start trying to put things in place to try to block this, block that, but they did not bank on Tulsi Gabbard and her team digging through the paperwork. Now, as you can see here in this article, Tulsi Gabbard torches complicit liberal media for ignoring DNI findings on the Russia probe. Now, you may or may not remember this, but let's take a look back to President Obama. And I'm not going to play this whole clip, but check out what he says here, then watch what I roll in right after this.
Unless the American people genuinely think that the professionals in the CIA, the FBI, our entire intelligence infrastructure, many of whom, by the way, served in previous administrations and who are Republicans, are less trustworthy than the Russians, then people should pay attention to what our intelligence agencies say.
He clear as day just said the American people feel like our intelligence officials are less trustworthy than the Russian intelligence. Then the American people should listen to our intelligence. Did you hear that Freudian slip and double talk? But I'll let him keep going.
We have said, and I will confirm, that this happened at the highest levels of the Russian government. And I will let you make that determination as to whether there are high-level Russian officials who go off rogue and decide to tamper with the U.S. election process without Vladimir Putin knowing about it. Our vulnerability to Russia or any other foreign power is directly related to how divided, partisan, dysfunctional our political process is. If fake news that's being released by some foreign government is almost identical to reports that are being issued through partisan news venues, then it's not surprising that that foreign propaganda will have a greater effect, because it doesn't seem that far-fetched compared to some of the other stuff that folks are hearing from domestic propagandists, voters.
So as you just heard Barack Obama out of his own mouth say again that at the highest levels, there was Russian interference, and there's no way that it could have been done without Putin's knowledge. Now, we all now know that that was a bold-faced lie that the president of the United States stands up there and is propagating. We know that now. But it doesn't stop with him. There's plenty of people that are complicit. And one thing they're talking about is how the presidential immunity that Trump was granted by the Supreme Court may actually come into play to actually help Barack Obama. Now, let's fast forward this thing. Let's rewind it, but we fast forward, but let's take it back even more. We just heard what Obama stood up there and say. Now listen to this woman who almost by the grace of the Most High God, it did not happen. But let's listen to this fake scamming Indian and Irish woman as she tries her best at her acting job to talk about just how bad Trump was in working with the Russians. Listen to this, because this is just one. And wait till you see the one as far as with the head of the CIA, John Brennan, what he had to say. But check out Kamala here, as she also spreads the lie. She should be prosecuted too.
Because the one thing we all have in common, I believe, is a priority on the security of our homeland and national security. So I cannot talk to you about the details of what I hear in that room, but I will tell you that a product of what has been discussed in that room are public reports from the intelligence community and from our committee about the fact of Russia's interference in the election of the president of the United States. Yet Donald Trump prefers to take the word of the Russian president over the word of the American intelligence community on this issue, to our demise. And let's back up and realize what happened. A historic adversary, Russia, trying to figure out, how can I take away some of the strength of that place called the United States of America? Well, one of the strengths that they've got, and it's intangible almost, you can't really touch it, but it's strong. When they walk in the room, it's their strength, is that they are a democracy. Imperfect though we may be, right? Flawed though we may be, it's part of our strength. How can we nip at that? Well, one of the greatest pillars of a democracy, especially ours, free.
Did you see how that lady looked when she said nip at that? Did you see this woman? I'm sorry, and I usually don't do this, but I just got to skip it back just a little bit just to see that lady's reaction. That just tripped me out. I'm gonna let it play.
Imperfect though we may be, right? Flawed though we may be, it's part of our strength. How can we nip at that? Well, one of the greatest pillars of a democracy, especially ours, free and open elections. We are very proud of the fact we've not had any revolutions in recent history. It is through a peaceful transition of power through elections, our election system. The subject that gained the most amount of heat was race. And they had people going at each other. This is all in the, you read the reports and you will see that this is what happened. So, but the fact is Russia interfered.
So as you heard, I don't even want to listen to any more of that. As you heard, she herself jumped up, and I'm sorry, there's a fly that is flying around and it is annoying me so bad. You know, I just keep touching you and you just like, oh, I'm trying not to swat while I'm shooting. But this woman just sat there and bold-faced lied, knowing that it was orchestrated, knowing that it was fake. As a matter of fact, she was on the Senate Intelligence Committee. And see, they like to talk about how Marco Rubio signed off on it. No, he did not. They are lying. You got people don't even realize Marco Rubio wasn't the secretary back then. He was a senator. And the reports that the director of the DNI gets versus the Senate, totally different. But Kamala Harris just sat there and bold-faced lied, spreading this to the Des Moines Registry about this quote-unquote so-called Russian interference. Now, her doing it is bad. But what about when it's the director of the CIA? This here who you're about to see is John Brennan, the former director of the CIA. Now, listen how the director of the CIA not only lies, but perjures himself in front of the Senate. You're going to have South Carolina Senator Trey Gowdy that's going to bring it to him. Matter of fact, during this hearing, Trey Gowdy, everybody was passing their time to Trey Gowdy, and Trey Gowdy was just plucking them. And thank goodness that he did, because now we have testimony. We have it where he flat out lied, and we now know he knowingly lied, knowingly misdirected, and knowingly spread misinformation. What should happen to John Brennan? Because he doesn't get presidential immunity. And he was one of the members that President Biden pardoned, but it was with auto pen. So now the validity of that has been called into question. And it's what I'm hearing, those pardons are not valid because they were made with auto pen, not with the actual presidential signature. And as a matter of fact, the president had no idea about these pardons, many of which came within the last 24, 48 hours of their administration. But listen to John Brennan. And if you're still here watching this right now, thank you so much for being a patriot. As a matter of fact, leave a comment. What do you think about what you just heard Kamala Harris say to the Des Moines Registry about the fact that Russian interfered? You just heard and saw President Obama at the presidential podium saying the same thing in the press room of the White House. Now listen to the CIA director and tell me what you think about this one.
And so, Director Brennan, do you know who commissioned the Steele dossier?
Remember the Steele dossier, that is the dossier that was paid for with the money from the Clinton Foundation that actually was telling the story of the Russia hoax.
I don't.
Do you know if the FBI paid for any portion of the Steele dossier?
I don't know. I know that there are press reports related to that, but I don't know. I have no firsthand knowledge of that.
Look at his
Do you
hands.
know whether any of the underlying allegations made in the Steele dossier were ever tested?
You see Cash Patel sitting back there, right? This is before Cash got up. This is how Cash knew so much about it. This is why Cash was ready to go after James Comey. John Brennan, he knew.
Probed, examined, cross-examined, whether the sources were examined for reliability, credibility?
I know that there were efforts made by the Bureau to try to understand whether or not any of the information in that was valid, but I don't have any firsthand knowledge of it.
Do you know if the Bureau ever relied on the Steele dossier as part of any court filings, applications, petitions, pleadings?
I have no awareness.
Now, right there, we just heard the director of the CIA say that he doesn't know if there was any money involved. Did they verify it? And not to mention all of the leaks that came out. Tons of leaks. So now we got the director of the CIA lying and perjuring himself before the Senate. We've got Kamala Harris lying to the Des Moines, Iowa Registry, spreading the propaganda. We got the president of the United States lying about Russian interference when he knows that it was created by him. Now, when all of this is going on, okay, because this hearing here happened in 2022, I believe. The Kamala Harris video we just saw was during the 2020 election. And Obama, what we saw him saying was during 2016, prior to him leaving office, because Trump took over on January the 20th, 2017. President Obama was still in office. Now, listen to President Trump as he explains what's going on, but look at the pushback that he gets.
Was when they spied on my campaign. They spied on my
Well,
campaign.
there's no
Leslie.
real evidence of that.
Of course there is. It's all
No.
over the place. Leslie,
Sir,
they spied on my campaign and they got caught.
Can I say something? You know, this is 60 Minutes, and we can't put on things we can't
No, you won't
verify.
put it on because it's bad for Biden.
We can't
Look, let
put
me
on
tell
things we can't verify.
you, Leslie, they spied on my campaign.
Well, we can't
It's
verify
been totally
that.
verified.
No.
It's been, just go down and get the papers. They spied on my campaign. They got caught.
No.
And then they went much further than that and they got caught. And you will see that, Leslie.
So now you got everybody saying, I literally saw Al Sharpton say, you know what? I can't believe that a president is going to trying to go after a former president. This has never happened before, as if he has amnesia or dementia about what they did to President Trump. Why is it that it was absolutely fine for the entire apparatus of the government to attack President Trump, but now that Obama has the light shined on him and the Clintons have been subpoenaed to testify, now, oh, we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be doing this. You notice nobody's calling him a liar anymore because the evidence is there. Now they're wanting everybody to just move on. They want to push past it. They want to use this whole Epstein situation to try to dominate the news cycle. They know Trump has nothing to do with that. They had the Epstein files. Obama had those back in 2014. Remember, the man was deposed in 2010, where he clear as day said he pled the fifth on everything, on everybody. He was prosecuted after that. The Obama FBI and DOJ had the documents. The Biden DOJ and FBI had it, but yet they didn't release anything. Nothing. It was a nothing burger. But now, remember, they were saying release, release, release. Well, guess what? Ghislaine Maxwell is out testifying. Now all the Democrats are saying, oh, you know, we shouldn't pay attention to her. That's not credible anymore. After saying, Trump, release the files, release the files. Who better to speak with than the accomplice of the devil himself? She knows everything, and it is to her benefit to be 100% honest, because if she lies, she faces life in prison, not the 20-year sentence she got. If she lies, They skip past that 20 years and she goes in for life. But if she's truthful and the information that she shares can be corroborated, she may even have her sentence reduced. Now, do I agree with that? No, I don't, because of the harm that was done to children. But how else can we get information that could lead to prosecutions unless they're willing to play ball? So does it suck? Yeah, but in an effort to get some of these top tier hedge fund managers and Democrat politicians that was doing ungodly things with young people and that were selling, they were promising a dream to Americans, but delivering a nightmare. Yes, they need to be prosecuted. Now, here we got what you call a Freudian slip. This is Joe Biden. This is during this whole thing, and they're going after Trump, and we're heading into the 2020. Joe Biden gave a Freudian slip about what his team and what he was setting up going into 2020 on the heels of all of this Russia stuff. Because behind the alleged Russia collusion, which we now know is a hoax, this organization was formed under Joe Biden. But listen to the Freudian slip.
Secondly, we're in a situation where we had put together, and you guys did it for our the President Obama's administration before this. We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
Did you hear that? He said they have put together the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of politics. That's a Freudian slip. And when you look back and you see him gibbering and all of that stuff, it was evident he wasn't all there then. But the pandemic and the timing was just phenomenal. And then now we learned that the numbers of people that were passing away was overblown. Now we learned that the jabs that they had everybody getting was actually leading to people being sick and brain fog and death. All of these things were on the heels of this Russia hoax that Obama put up. Because without that hoax, the American people wouldn't have flipped, and the mainstream media wouldn't have used that to spearhead the impeachments against President Trump, which made half of the country hate the man, and then made it to where he was spending most of his administration fighting impeachments and disinformation rather than working for the American people. Not to mention him being new to Washington, he trusted different people to be put into his administration that he learned after the fact were working against him from the inside out. They were put there to make sure certain pieces of information were suppressed, not projected out. And it worked. But what they never banked on is 45 becoming 47. They never in a million years could have saw that coming. Which leads back to this article with Tulsi Gabbard, where she is just disgusted with the fact that the media is complicit again in the cover-up. Let's go through this. It says again, Tulsi Gabbard tortures complicit liberal media for ignoring DNI findings on Russia probe. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, criticized liberal media outlets for ignoring a declassified report alleging former President Barack Obama and his administration manufactured intelligence in order to launch the years-long Trump-Russia investigation. Gabbard declassified the report on the Obama administration's Russia hoax last Friday, revealing overwhelming evidence that demonstrates how, after Trump won the 2016 election against Hillary Clinton, then President Barack Obama and his national security team laid the groundwork for what would be the years-long Trump-Russia collusion probe. The intelligence chief noted that it was interesting to see how the mainstream media, the lamestream media, had refused to cover this story at all this week and said that their silence on the matter was deafening. And it's interesting to see how when they do cover this, they don't actually cover the revelations that these intelligence reports and the evidence that we released actually conveys to the American people, she said Saturday on Fox and Friends. They simply talk about their criticisms of it or convey Democrat politicians' criticism, but none of them actually deal with the truth that has been revealed. Gabbard said there are two reasons why liberal media outlets refuse to talk about the findings revealed in the report. Number one is they don't want the American people to know the truth, but also they recognize the lamestream media's complicity in this, that they were fed early lines from this manufacturer of false intelligence assessment that President Obama ordered, that John Brennan and James Clapper created without any vetting, without any actual journalistic integrity of looking at what they were being fed. They received it, they printed it almost immediately, she added. The DNI compared the media's current silence on the damning intelligence report to its past role in promoting the manufacture of false intelligence about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction to garner support for war in the Middle East. And how many did they ever admit that they were wrong, that they failed as journalists? She questioned. Really, they didn't. A couple of them gave some lame excuses, but there's a lot of parallels here for us to take a step back and look at again the magnitude of what has been revealed and why it's important to every American, not just Democrats or Republicans, but it really has to do with the foundational principles of our democratic republic and the integrity of that. Our democratic republic, not a democracy. Obama recently responded to the bizarre allegations made by the Trump administration in connection with the declassified report, issuing a rare public statement on Tuesday. This is how I know they got Obama. He never responds. He never feeds into it, but now his office is going to publicly respond when the hit dog will holler. Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. Obama spokesman Patrick Rodenbush said in a statement, but these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction, Obama spokesman continued. Nothing in the document issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 presidential election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes. He added, these findings were affirmed in a 2020 report by the Bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee, then led by Chairman Marco Rubio. They love to use that. Even Rubio came out and said, hey, y'all need to stop using me in this because what y'all are saying isn't true. Gabbard commented on Obama's response to the declassification of the Trump-Russia report during her appearance on Fox and Friends Saturday, arguing that his carefully worded response deflects away from addressing any of the truth that was revealed. So as you see, she put it back. His response does not address the fact that they got documents, they've got emails, they've got whistleblower testimony, proof that Obama architected, the Clinton Foundation financed it, John Brennan, Jim Clapper, James Comey helped create it, and the lamestream media helped disseminate it out. So we got the three-headed monster. We've got the head of the nation, the most powerful man in the world. We've got the media apparatus. Then we got the intelligence organizations, all of them working together to promote this BS and spin the American people around and around. And it almost cost us our country, y'all. It almost did. And hopefully I don't offend anybody, but I believe in God. I know that there is a God, because when you look at what they've done in those 4 years, and if we'd given them another 4 years, we would have been at the point of no return. Luckily now we have a fighting chance of literally ushering in the golden age in America, and I'm here for it. So I want to know, what do you think about the fact that you saw the video of Obama saying it? You saw the video of the testimony of John Brennan. You saw the video of Kamala Harris promoting it during her presidential run. We saw the video of Joe Biden admitting in a Freudian slip that they've created a voter fraud political apparatus that made sure he won. How do you think he won by supposed 17 million votes? But yet this year, during the election with Trump and Kamala, and all the previous years, the numbers of the amount of voters stays about the same. About, 70, 60 for either direction. And it's been like that in every single presidential election. And it decreases as the population decreases as we go back and back and back. There was one anomaly, and that one anomaly was 2020, where we saw an abnormal amount of people vote. So then what happened? These people disliked Trump so much, they came out during the pandemic, voted, but during the Trump and Kamala, or the Trump Biden 2024, they all stayed home, even though Trump was an existential threat, even though they said Trump was Hitler. These people just decided to sit it out. I don't buy that BS. We saw the videos of people pulling luggage, pulling briefcases under tables. We saw the video of people stuffing those lock boxes. We saw it. But the Democrats and the lamestream media says, don't believe your eyes. Nothing to see there. Just like with this. But the presidential immunity may make it, Well, President Obama doesn't face any criticism, but I read the Supreme Court ruling, and if I understand it correctly, it says that the president can have immunity when performing within their presidential duties, creating treason or committing treason against the country is not a part of the presidential duties. It's kind of like if a president went out and pow-powed somebody. They wouldn't have immunity for that unless it was like an invasion and they went out and did that to protect the homeland. But if they just randomly got up and went outside and pow-pow somebody, they would go to prison for unaliving somebody. And I believe this is the same way. So we're going to see. But John Brennan, Jim Clapper, and all of them, they are not safe. And you better believe the Trump train and the DOJ are coming. And I'm here for it. So if you watched the video up to this point, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, hit that like button. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe. And most importantly, I want you to stay safe and you be great. I'm Brian Maxwell saying I look forward to seeing you at the top. Let's get these people out of there, y'all. Over and out.